Just how broken is the New York Giants offense? Well, let's take a deep dive into some of the stats to find out. That's coming up next on the Locked On Giants podcast.
You are Locked On Giants, your daily New York Giants podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, New York Giant fans, and welcome to another edition of the Locked On Giants podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast family, your team every day. I'm your host, Patricia Trainer, credential member of the New York Giants media for Locked On, as well as for New York Giants on SI, which is where you can find all of my written work. And as always, welcome on in to my Blue Crew community members, to my everydayers, to my newcomers, and everybody in between. Thank you for spending part of your day with us here on the Locked On Giants podcast. And happy holidays to everybody. Regardless of what holiday you're celebrating, I hope it's a good one for you. And hopefully, look, this Giants season has just been an absolute disaster for all of us. And here's hoping at least the holidays perk everybody's spirits up. And on today's Locked On Giants podcast, we're going to take a deep dive into some of the stats of this broken Giants offense. And today's episode, by the way, of the Locked On Giants podcast is brought to you by PrizePicks, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use our promo code in all lowercase letters, LockedOnNFL, to win $50 instantly when you play just $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. PrizePicks, run your game. All right, so we're going to take a deep statistical dive. Now, this is something that I like to do every so often. If I have the time, I like to really get into the nitty-gritty of what I call the macro stats. All right, so in other words, a macro stat, an example would be rushing yards per game, or rushing yards per attempt, or scoring points per game. And I like to really dig a little deeper to see if there's a trend that's developed, whether it be this season or over time or what have you. So that's what I did. I came up with a bunch of stats, and I just want to spend this entire show going over these stats and just how they have contributed to basically where we are right now with this broken Giants offense that I think we were all hoping would be a lot better, with Brian Dable calling the plays, with Malik Neighbors added. The offensive line earlier in the year looked like it was going to be, improved, and then the injuries hit it hard, and now, that's been a mess. The quarterback situation, which has been a mess. So let's get into some of these stats. And the first one I want to start with is turnovers. Now, I don't have to tell you guys that turnovers are evil. They don't help anybody unless you're getting takeaways, right? If you're giving the ball away, that's not going to help you. So let's take a look at what the Giants have done. The Giants in 2024 have 22 turnovers, all right? Most of them, I believe, are fumbles, okay? The 22 turnovers have resulted in 62 points scored by the opponent. 62. Now, the takeaways by the Giants, they have 12 takeaways, 8 fumble recoveries, 3 interceptions, and they have been able to convert those into 24 points. Now, why do I mention the point total? Because you go and you look at the season scoring, the Giants versus their opponents. The Giants have been outscored by their opponents 362 to 215. That is a 147-point difference. So ask yourself this, folks. If maybe that 62 points that the Giants opponents got off of their 22 turnovers, maybe if that's halved, and maybe if you take the 24 points that the Giants have been able to convert off of the takeaways, maybe if you double that, perhaps the scoring's a little closer. Perhaps these games aren't blowouts. Perhaps some of these losses turn into wins. But such is not the case. It has not been the case. Turnovers has been a issue for the Giants. Unlike last year where I think they had a little bit better turnover ratio this year, I have no idea why they're just not only getting the takeaways, but they're giving it up so much despite supposedly having better talent. So I don't understand that at all. All right. But again, so if you were to take away the turnovers, the Giants would be outscored 85 points, which is a lot better than 147 points. So that's definitely a stat that you can point to in justifying saying that the offense is broken. All right, speaking of which, let's talk about scoring. All right, some interesting stuff here. The Giants, as I mentioned, have been outscored 362 to 215. That breaks down as follows. For the first quarter, the Giants have been outscored 82 to 29. The second quarter, 114 to 72. The third quarter, 102 to 33. And then in the fourth quarter, the Giants have actually outscored opponents 81 to 61. Overtime, 3-0. Now, why do I break it down like that? Because that fourth quarter where the Giants have outscored their opponents, that's considered garbage time. So at that point, the opponents basically have the game under wraps. They're easing up a little bit on the gas pedal. The Giants are able to usually score in the last, few minutes of the game. Now, let me point this out to you. I did a little historical research here. Since 2020, the Giants have only scored over 300 points on the season one time. That was in 2022, the first year of Brian Daboll as head coach, when they scored 365 points and went to the postseason. All right. They have since, in that span, 2020 to now, they have averaged 276.8 points per season. You ain't going to win very many games if you're not averaging at least 300 plus a season. Okay? Now, I went back from 2009 to 2019. The Giants were only under 300 points in a season twice. And that was, that was in 2013 when they scored 294. So they fell 6 points shy of 300 that year. And 2017 when they scored just 246. So goes without saying, folks, if you're not scoring, you're not winning. Unless you've got like that 85 Bears defense that can shut people down, you can't get by unless you're scoring in a game. And typically the average, if you look at, the teams that are in the postseason contention right now, they're averaging at least 25 points per game. Giants haven't seen 25 points per game in I don't know how long. Ultimately, they got to get up there. And again, is that a combination of the play calling? Is it a combination of the execution? Is it a result of mistakes? The answer is yes to all of the above. There have been so many things that have sabotaged this team, particularly on offense. And it just seems like they're stuck in a vicious cycle. All right, I'm going to give you a couple more points here on the scoring issue. The Giants are currently on pace to have the fewest passing touchdowns since 2020. All right, so right now the Giants have 10 passing touchdowns. In 2020, they had 12. Again, you're not going to win very many games if you can't throw for touchdowns. And what's just, mind-boggling, the Giants have speed at receiver. Malik Neighbors, Darius Slayton, they've got quickness in Wan'Dale Robinson, and the quarterbacks just can't get the ball to these guys. Why? Is it because the receivers have to stop to catch the ball, and then by the time they start up again, the defender is in their face and has them on the ground? That could be part of it. But whatever it is, that's pretty sad. All right? I'm going to give you one last stat on the scoring aspect. Right? 2-point conversions. Now, the Giants since the 2-point conversion was adopted by the NFL, the most they have tried in a season is 7. They've done that twice, this year and in 2018. In 2018, the Giants went 4 of 7 on 2-point conversions. This year, they're 1 of 7. Now, you know how I feel about using analytics when it comes to making decisions in game. Analytics is all about math. Not one of my favorite subjects, by the way. You have to take into consideration other factors that analytics does not. Weather, field conditions, personnel. There's so many other factors. So when I get the sense that Brian Daboll is leaning so heavily on analytics, it drives me insane. It's like, dude, come on, you got it. You made it this far as a coach. You surely you didn't have analytics always at your disposal. Why not use common sense? So it's just maddening to see that. As it is maddening to see that this team can't score for whatever the reason. But you know what? We've got plenty more stats that might explain why the Giants haven't been able to score. And I'm going to take a look at another big one right after this. Hey, Giant fans, get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. This week, the Giants are a 7.5-point underdog, despite having lost their last 2 games by more than 2 scores. So you think taking the Colts to cover is a sure bet? Well, go on, hit up FanDuel and play your hunch. FanDuel lets you check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more, all on the very same page where you place your bets. Visit FanDuel.com to get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. All right, Giant fans, welcome back to the Locked On Giants podcast. I'm your host, Patricia Traina. And just a quick reminder, there's not going to be a show tomorrow. Tomorrow, of course, is Christmas. And yes, I'm going to take the day off to celebrate Christmas with my family. So, but I will be back on Thursday. Thursday, we have the crossover show with Jake Arthur, co-host of Locked On Colts. That show's already been taped. It's already loaded. If you look in your show listing, you'll see it's already queued up and ready to go. So that will be our Thursday show. And then Friday, we'll figure out what we're going to do for Friday because I'll be back on the clock, so to speak, on Friday. So again, thank you for tuning in, spending part of your day with us here. Let's continue on taking a look at why this Giants offense is so broken, looking at the stats and what the stats tell us. Now, this one is a big one, folks, as far as I'm concerned. Penalties. All right, let's take a look at penalties. Now, specifically, I wanted to take a look at 2 areas of penalties. I wanted to take a look at the pre-snap penalties, and I wanted to take a look at the number of penalties that created stalled scoring drives. Right, so I have stats for you on both. Let's start off with the pre-snap penalties. Now, for me, pre-snap is defined as a false start, a delay of game, or one of these illegal shifts, illegal motion type things, anything before the snap. So here's what I've got for you. The number of false starts that the Giants have been flagged for this year, 20. The league average, 18.75. The number of delay of games. Now, keeping in mind that delay of games, sometimes they're done intentionally, but still, that's not broken down in the stats. The Giants' delay of game, 10. The league average, 4.63. And they've lost 50 yards, by the way, for delay of game infractions. They are the second highest penalized team for delay of game behind Carolina. Going back to the false start stat real quick, the Giants have lost 100 yards in penalties as a result of false starts, the length of a football field. All right, moving onward. Illegal shift. The Giants, no surprise, tied with the Cleveland Browns for the highest number of illegal shift penalties. 7. Count them. 7. The league average, 1.72. Amount of yards lost on those penalties, 35. Now, why did I isolate the pre-snap penalties? Because it's all about discipline on offense. False starts, there's absolutely no reason why a offensive lineman should be jumping early. He knows the snap count. All right. And we have seen far too many times guys, lining up against a really good pass rusher and just wanting to time it so that they could just get that split second just as the ball is being snapped. And their timing is just not there because they're not looking at the ball. They're looking across at the guy across from them, or they're just, zoning out for whatever reason. So that is a big, big problem. Now, continuing on with penalties, the Giants average 8 penalties a game. Teams that have averaged 8 penalties a game are 36, 25, and 1 on the year. That's a 0.589 win percentage. But let's take a look at a bigger picture if we could here. All right. The Giants have 99 penalties in 15 games. 41 of those have come in the last 4 weeks. 3 of those weeks, folks, the Giants having 10 or more penalties. That's just sloppiness. And yeah, I get it. There's been new personnel being brought in because of injuries and whatnot. But come on. Where's the attention to detail? Those penalties are killing them. Right now, speaking of killing them, as far as the penalties go, let's talk about stalled drives. All right, so these are penalties that happen on a scoring drive that has promise that the estimation is that it would come away with at least an attempt at a field goal, if not a touchdown. But because of a penalty, the Giants get pushed back and the drive stalls. All right, so the Giants have had 164 drives this season. Of those, 35 have been stalled as a result of penalties. That's 21.3% of their drives stalling out because of penalties. And this is all penalties. This isn't just the pre-snap ones. This includes holding, offensive pass interference, all the penalties that, apply on offense, right? You can't have that. You just can't have that. And what's interesting here is the Giants were pretty much a clean team penalty-wise in the beginning part of the season. And then, the injuries happen and you've got different guys coming in and that's disrupting the chemistry and all that stuff. And they've just gotten sloppy. So, could you put that on coaching? I suppose you could, because, coaches, they have to make sure that the guys know their assignment, that they know what to do and whatnot, but it's just not happening. It's just not happening for whatever the reason, and it's hurting this team, especially on the offensive side of the ball. I mean, go back and look at the last drive that the Giants had against Atlanta. They had, in that Atlanta game, I believe they had 10 penalties. 5 of their penalties came on that last drive of the game. Right? That's just crazy. It's absolute craziness. And that's why this offense, one of the many reasons why this offense is so broken. So, what else has led to this offense being basically a mess? I've got a few more that I'm going to talk about. These are more macro stats, but they're important in my mind. We'll talk about them right after this. Hey, Giant fans, today's episode is sponsored by Prize Picks. If you love watching the game, you're going to love Prize Picks, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy. Whether it's football, basketball, or any of your favorite sports, Prize Picks makes your holidays bigger and brighter. And now you can win up to 1,000 times your money on Prize Picks. Plus, this holiday season, they're giving away $30 million plus in rewards during Picksmas and offering 2 free picks in the month of December. And when your picks hit, Prize Picks makes it easy to cash out. You can get your money in as fast as 15 minutes. And Prize Picks now offers MasterCard for quick and easy deposits into your account. So go on, download the Prize Picks app today and use the promo code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 instantly after your first $5 lineup. That's right, $50 instantly when you play just $5. Prize Picks, run your game. Hey, Giant fans, Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps you find and cancel your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and it helps you lower your bills so that you can grow your savings. It brings everything together in one place, whether it's subscriptions, your spending habits, or even the goals that you want to hit this year. Rocket Money has over 5 million users and has saved a total of $500 million in canceled subscriptions, saving members up to $740 a year when using all the app's premium features. For me, one of the best features is the subscription tracker. I've used it to cancel services I wasn't using anymore, and I've already saved a ton. Plus, with their goals feature, I've been able to automatically set aside money for my future. There's no more stressing about budgeting every month. So go on, cancel your unwanted subscriptions and reach your financial goals faster with Rocket Money. Go to rocketmoney.com/lockedon today. Again, that's rocketmoney.com/lockedon. rocketmoney.com/lockedon. All right, Giant fans, welcome back to the Locked On Giants podcast. I'm your host, Patricia Traina, and we're taking a look at some stats that just underscore just how badly this Giants offense has performed in 2024, how it's gone backwards. And I have a few more. These are more on the macro side of things, but these are important stats all the less that I want to talk about. All right. And I want to start off with yards per play, average yards per play. The Giants are averaging 4.6 yards per play. Guys, gals, not good. Why is that not good? Ideally, you want to average at least 5. You want to get at least half of the yardage you need on first down. So 1st and 10, you want to be averaging at least 5 yards per play. You want to be in a situation where you are facing 2nd and short, 3rd and short, 4th and short. And if you are not averaging at least 5 per play, chances are you're facing a lot more longer situations. And by doing that, that now changes the strategy. It changes what you can potentially call. It changes the whole approach. And factoring into that also, folks, is where you are in terms of starting field position. So if you're deep in your own territory and you're chipping away, 3 yards here, 2 yards here, a yard here, and you're averaging just 4.6 yards per play, chances are you're going to be punting a lot and deep in your own territory. And chances are your opponent is going to have very favorable starting field position and a shorter field with which to work. So the offense, like I said, just not as potent as what it needs to be. 4.6 yards per play, not a very good stat. All right, another stat, not very good, is their completion percentage. All right, the Giants have completed 61% of their pass attempts versus the 70% that their opponents have completed. All right, ideally, you want to see that number hovering closer to 70. So you want to see it around, 66, 67, 68. 61, that's bad. It's just really bad. Now, part of that, we have to acknowledge, part of that is a result of drops. I get that. That's part of the equation. But the adjusted completion percentage of this team's quarterbacking has not been much better. So the hope, obviously, is if the Giants get a franchise quarterback in the draft next year, that number improves. But right now, that's a big problem and a big indicator of just how broken this offense is. The final stat I want to mention, and this is a pretty obvious one, but I'm going to throw it in here anyway, red zone performance. If you're not averaging close to 50% conversion rate in the red zone, then you might as well just pack it up and go home. Well, you know what? The Giants aren't averaging at least 50% in the red zone, so they are going to pack it up and go home in a couple of weeks. The Giants are 17 of 40 inside the red zone. That's a 43% conversion rate, which puts them down near the bottom of the league. Their opponents are averaging 53% conversion rate, right? So that's a 10% difference. Is there any wonder why the Giants can't score, or why the Giants are being outscored with numbers like this, right? If this doesn't show you that the Giants offense is flawed, then, I don't know what else to tell you. Now, you're all probably saying, well, whose fault is it? Is it Brian Dable's fault? Is it the players' fault? Is it Joe Shane's fault? Folks, it's a combination of all of the above. And look, this offseason, I don't think I have to tell you, this offseason is going to be a very interesting one as the Giants look to rebuild and reshape. All right. Now, I do not know if, Brian Dable will be back. I do not know if Joe Shane will be back. My guess is Shane will be, Dable will not. But, ownership is the only ones I should say, that know what they're going to do. All I know, though, is this offense has been historically bad. This team has been historically bad. And it's been disappointing because they have the talent. They should be playing and performing a lot better than what they have. And it just hasn't happened. And here we are, folks. A long season, which thankfully comes to an end in a couple of weeks. All right, folks, that's going to do it for me here on the Locked On Giants podcast. Again, I want to thank you so much for tuning in and spending part of your day with us. Again, if you are celebrating Christmas tomorrow, have a happy Christmas. If you're celebrating a different holiday, whatever it is, season's greeting to you all. Thank you so much for being part of the Locked On Giants family. It is appreciated. And I will see you guys on Thursday for the crossover show with Jake Arthur of Locked On Colts. Until then, have a good one, everybody.